All right, guys, Bitcoin 1 million. Okay. We're going to be reading from Bitcoin 1 million. Ben's going to do a restream as well. Ready? Let me actually make sure 100% sure that this is working.
All right, here we go. I'm ready.
I'm not sure I am.
I'm ready.
Hold on one second.
I'm ready.
Yeah, I am.
I'm
I'm
ready.
ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, good.
I'm ready.
Okay, guys, let's
Dun,
go.
dun,
I get to be the live
dun,
audience
dun,
here.
dun, dun,
All right, got it.
dun, dun, dun. We got two cameras going, so I got to go to both cameras.
All right, good.
But anyways, we're both streaming on our stuff. Fred's not allowed to do Instagram, so I'm doing some Instagramming. We got Will in the background.
Yo. Hey, peeps.
And today we're going to be reading from today's reading is from Psalms.
Open your prayer books to him.
Yeah, we're going to open up to the hymns. Oh, wow, we've made it pretty far in this book already. Honestly,
We're
these
halfway
chapters go so fast. We wrote this book, Bitcoin 1 Million. We're reading from it live to you here. And we're up to chapter 12, Fast Bitcoin. So
What's the point of Fast Bitcoin?
Fast Bitcoin. What does Fast Bitcoin even mean?
Why care? Why?
Yeah,
Some people aren't Bitcoiners. So
Yeah, let's just try to explain for a moment.
how does Bitcoin work?
Bitcoin works slowly. So when you do a transaction on Bitcoin, the average time it takes to finish is 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Unless you use something called Bitcoin Lightning, which is a version of Fast Bitcoin.
Right. And
So
we're going to talk.
we're going to talk about Lightning. We're going to talk about how could Bitcoin become a transactional network for world finance if it's so slow?
Right. And some people will say, well, Fred, it doesn't need to. We have Visa, we have MasterCard.
We have all these great
And
systems. We have Venmo.
We have
Cash App.
Venmo. We don't need it. And you know what? You're probably right this year. But, Cash App just released today
The ability to spend Bitcoin.
the ability to spend Bitcoin. So this stuff is actually coming. And, ultimately, Bitcoin is going to be the financial network of the planet. And, we're going to need to make Bitcoin fast. Now, when I say on average it's 10 minutes, it can be, what's the longest Bitcoin transaction that you've seen, Ben?
I mean, you can have a transaction that never goes through.
I know that. That's true. I definitely
We've had
have
those transactions. We've had transactions that we paid too low of a fee.
Yep.
And it was sitting there. We had to go and boost it.
Yeah. At quite a high
Replaced by
price.
fee. Yeah, we paid like $50 or $100 for
Yeah.
the transaction.
Yeah.
But it
You
was
can
our
basically
mistake.
bribe the miners to basically.
Well, transaction fees are actually completely voluntary
Right.
in Bitcoin. But if you don't put one in, your transaction might never get mined. So
And actually, we view that voluntary transaction fees as one of the four
one of the four innovations.
innovations of Satoshi. One of the four key, actually very significant impacts.
But if you're
of
interested in reading
Bitcoin.
about that, buy our first book, Bitcoin, the big Bitcoin book. We got one.
Right. This
This is actually the Bible,
is the Bible.
the Bitcoin Bible.
Everything about replaced by fee. Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's the book on Bitcoin history. This is a book about Bitcoin futures. We're talking about in the future, how will the world work with Bitcoin? How will it scale?
Yeah.
Is the concept.
And we don't know yet. We're not 100% sure. So we're going to talk about the different angles.
We're not pretending to know. Actually, we're going to just
Nobody
look at
knows.
different elements of this scaling debate and whether it's needed
All
or
right.
not.
So why don't you kick it off?
Fast Bitcoin. So this chapter explores how Bitcoin scales through Lightning Network's instant global payments and emerging technologies like ARC and BitVM. You'll understand why Bitcoin's layered architecture mirrors the internet's evolution, enabling millions of transactions per second, while maintaining the security of the base layer that will secure 21 trillion of global wealth. The scaling paradox. The path to 1 million Bitcoin runs through a scaling paradox. To achieve global adoption, the prerequisite for 1 million and beyond, Bitcoin must process billions of transactions annually. Yet, Bitcoin's base layer handles only 200 million transactions per year. Visa processes 233 billion transactions annually. We're talking about 1,000x difference 1100x actually, but
Yeah.
Bitcoin's scaling crisis began with a single line of code because originally Bitcoin had no block size limit at all. And then in July 2010, Satoshi quietly introduced one variable, max block size, buried inside an update actually titled Fix OpenSSL Linkage Problems.
Okay, I'm going to show that in the
It's
original
crazy.
book.
Yeah, we actually have it in the original
This
book.
is actually a really
It's almost like a hidden.
It's almost
change.
like he kind of tried to get it past. He almost kind of snuck it by the community in a way. Like, do you think he actually
No one
knew?
was really paying close attention to who was doing what. There was no consensus back then. It was sort of a
Yeah,
whatever Satoshi wanted to change, he was changing.
right.
But yeah,
Where is it?
It's right there, right there.
Yeah,
That's
right
it.
there.
Yeah, this is it. So here's
Okay.
the actual screenshot of the. Yeah.
That's it. That's the single line of code, and he put in this code max block size equals 1 million. Right there. That was the piece of code that was introduced in July
Let
of
me show my
2010.
camera too here. This is a screenshot of the actual code change. And what's interesting about this is the title "Fix OpenSSL Linkage Problems" has nothing to do with max block size.
Right. It does, but he just threw in block size right into that fixed linkage problem. Very crafty.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously didn't think it was a big deal at the
No,
time.
actually, but the blocks were not full.
That's why it's like,
Mhm.
seemingly innocuous.
Right.
And that change alone limited Bitcoin to the estimated speed of about 7 transactions per second. So these 2017 block size wars that were an outcome of that years later, because that was in 2010 or something.
2010, yeah.
That was in 2010. So 7 years later, we had this huge block size war in Bitcoin.
Which almost destroyed Bitcoin.
To some people's view, it did. But
yeah.
actually, in other views, it's what made Bitcoin
It hardened it in a way,
resilient,
right?
hardened it.
Yeah.
So these block size wars, they weren't just about the technical parameters of this block size, but it also determined Bitcoin's path to global adoption. So there was one team of big blockers, and they wanted to scale Bitcoin immediately with larger blocks.
Roger Ver, being the main big blocker.
Now, this wasn't an issue before 2017 because the blocks were totally empty.
Yeah.
So until 2015, 2016, there was no question, there was no problem with block size. And these small blockers, they wanted more decentralization, cheaper to run, more security through having more people running it. And those people were also working on side chains, like most of the developers who work at Blockstream.
Yeah.
And the community was fractured violently on these competing visions. Bitcoin as digital cash versus Bitcoin as digital gold. Choice is profound. By keeping blocks small and prioritizing decentralization, Bitcoin chose to scale through innovation rather than through simple parameter increases. And this decision forced the development of second layer solutions, bridges, and new financial infrastructure that could preserve Bitcoin's security while enabling global adoption. The question became, can Bitcoin maintain its monetary properties while supporting the transactional volume required for $10 million per coin? So the answer lies in the scaling technologies that emerged from the war's aftermath.
All right, I'll read the Lightning reality. Lightning Network emerged as the officially blessed scaling solution, promising instant settlements with minimal fees. But those of us building consumer applications saw the limitations immediately. Ben has run through several Lightning nodes over the years, not just using Lightning wallets, actually running the infrastructure, managing channels, routing payments. The marketing materials don't mention several practical challenges. First, liquidity management is a nightmare. Liquidity channels need balanced liquidity in order to route the payments efficiently. If all your Bitcoin is on one side of the channel, you can only send or receive, not both. Keeping channels balanced requires constant attention, frequently rebalancing transactions, and often spending more in fees than you earn from routing.
True.
Setting forwarding fees is an art form that we have never mastered. Too high and no one routes through you. Too low and you're subsidizing other people's payments when your channels get drained. The sweet spot changes daily based on network conditions, competing routes, and channel capacity.
Yet, if you change your fees too often, you get punished by the routing nodes. So
Why don't you talk a little bit about your experience with your 2 Lightning nodes?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
basically what we came up with is this method of like, you have to realize that like the way this stuff works is that it's almost like a seesaw. You know, if your channel becomes unbalanced, you can't get back the other way without someone sending transactions back this way to reset your seesaw. And so if you have 3 nodes, you can kind of, if you have 2 nodes, you can kind of link both of them to the same node. And then if the payments are going too far in one direction, you can use this node to send payments back through your node. It's just insane. It's insane.
All right. The promise was passive income from routing fees. The reality was active losses from rebalancing costs. Now I got to tell you,
Everyone experienced this.
everybody remember about 3 years ago when everybody was like so
2021,
hot about Lightning, and we were just like,
We met these guys who were like, I quit my job just to be a full-time Lightning node guy. That's it.
that's what I'm doing, man. I don't touch the fiat world, man. I'm just earning Bitcoin
I
on my
sold my
Lightning
gym.
channels.
Remember that guy? He's like, he sold
Oh yeah,
his
the
gym.
guy in El Salvador. He's like, sold my gym, man. I'm all in. I'm all in, man.
We took him to El Salvador with us, this guy.
Yeah, we paid for his
paid for him
trip.
to come to El Salvador.
Yeah,
So funny. But yeah.
but yeah, there's a lot of people who really thought they
He
could
was
just
managing channels a full-time job.
Yeah.
He ran one of the biggest Lightning nodes out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, he shut down his node. He's back to work.
Yep, he went back to the gym.
Yeah.
Puncher, if you're listening out there,
Don't
do not sell your
gyms
gym
without
and go
Lightning.
do Lightning. Okay. Ben spent countless hours managing channels, updating a few fee policies, and troubleshooting failed payments. These nodes rarely earned enough to cover their operating costs, let alone opportunity cost of locked capital. Running a Lightning node isn't passive income. It's a part-time job that pays below minimum wage. El Salvador case.
I still remember my first Lightning payment in El Zonte, El Salvador. I scanned a QR code for a coffee, and by the time I looked up, the transaction cleared. The barista didn't even pause. That was the first time Bitcoin felt like money I could actually spend without waiting in line for 10 minutes. El Salvador's Bitcoin experiment gets criticized for many valid reasons: forced adoption, custodial wallets, political motivations, but walking through Bitcoin Beach and watching locals use Lightning for everyday coconuts showed me something important. When the infrastructure works, Bitcoin can actually function as money. The key word is when. Outside of carefully cultivated Bitcoin Beach environment, Lightning payments still fail regularly, especially for amounts above $100. But that coffee purchase proved the concept. Instant, nearly free Bitcoin transactions are possible for small amounts. We just need better infrastructure for larger payments. UX gap. Custodial Lightning wallets like Strike, Cash App, or Wallet of Satoshi offer a seamless experience. Payments are instant, fees are negligible, and the complexity is hidden. For users, it feels like magic. Bitcoin works like Venmo. But you've traded sovereignty for convenience. These aren't Lightning wallets in the true sense. They're Bitcoin banks with Lightning integration. A lot of people don't realize it's about Strike and the way it works, you know?
Let's talk about custodial versus
Let's
non-custodial
talk
Lightning.
about it,
That
yeah.
is a really important.
It's become a massive debate online because we have, on one side, we have Alex Gladstein from the Human Rights Foundation saying Lightning is a good solution for people in the third world to be able to transact with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
On the other side, you have Paul Storks, a Bitcoin, very well-known Bitcoin developer.
Yeah.
Who is essentially saying Lightning is a failure because of the custody.
Mhm.
Meaning you have to trust someone else with your keys to use Lightning well. And I think that's mostly true. Lightning works really well with these custodial wallets. And it works
Now, my
not
view,
so well with these
Yeah.
wallets like Breeze and Phoenix.
yeah, Breeze to me is a failure. I got to tell you, I've looked at it, and here's my view personally on it: is this is not about, you're not going to use Lightning to send your life savings to another thing. You shouldn't. It doesn't work like that, right? Unless your life savings is $100. But Lightning is kind of, it's kind of like Venmo for small amounts, right? So you trust Venmo, you trust the bank of Venmo.
I don't know if you can send that much on Venmo anyway. You can't
Right.
send, there's limits to that too, it's large.
Right. But it's sort of the same use
Venmo
case.
is small amounts. So,
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that, in the case of Lightning, you really got to ask yourself, if it's spending hundreds of dollars here or there on Lightning, is it really the end of the world that it's custodial? My answer is no. Now, the SEC might have had, or the FinCEN might have had a different, feeling about this. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. You're a money transmitter thing. You need a license. But, and that's for a while, Wallet of Satoshi, which was the most widely used.
I think it's back.
And now it's back.
But they shut down in the US.
For like a year or 2 years. Yeah.
They came back now. But anyways, the point is that this custodial thing, it works, but you've traded sovereignty for convenience. So it's just like traditional banking. If you use traditional banking, use Zelle, it's the same thing. So the whole point, Satoshi's gift, as I like to call it, is the idea that you can have self-sovereign money, meaning there's no third parties. Lightning custodially reintroduces third parties, so it sort of defeats the purpose. Now, I think Lightning purists would say, oh, I run my own Lightning node. I don't have problems with payments. I've never had a problem with a payment. Well, you have really great channels, really great liquidity. When you use Breeze app, your first payment can cost you multiple dollars, $5 to $10 to open up a channel. It's not good. So, yeah, those non-custodial wallets, well, they offer sovereignty, but at a cost. Channel management is automated, but not free. Opening channels requires an on-chain transaction on Bitcoin. Receiving payments when offline is very complicated. So large payments often fail due to routing limitations. Then there's the backup problem. Lose your channel state, you might lose your funds. Unlike on-chain Bitcoin, where a seed phrase is enough, Lightning requires backing up dynamic channel data.
This is one thing that people don't realize. Lightning is not on-chain Bitcoin. It isn't.
No,
so
it's
if
true.
you're Lightning,
it's also private.
It's private. Look, if you are on a Lightning thing and the other guy's node goes down, you're going to get your money back, but it could take a week.
If you have a channel between another node, it could take you 10 days. To force close a channel.
Yeah.
So while modern implementations have improved backup mechanisms and your counterparty can't steal your funds outright, you could still lose access to channel balances if your backups fail.
All right, let's talk about the infrastructure reality. Despite these challenges, Lightning continues improving. The technology is still early, but the fundamentals are sound, and infrastructure keeps advancing. As of September 2025, when we wrote this book, this part of it, the network had 14,720 public nodes.
Lightning
network, 45,890 channels with 4,105 Bitcoin in total capacity. This represents actually a decline from the peak of 5,500 BTC in 2023. But in dollars, it's higher, obviously, right? Yeah. But in Bitcoin, it's less, reflecting both market conditions and users moving to more efficient channel management strategies. So we have a little chapter here. I'm just going to summarize the little table here, which is that the Lightning metrics, the total capacity, the peak was 5,500 Bitcoin. Now it's 4,100, so it's down 30%. Public nodes were at 18,000 at the peak. Now they're only at 14,700. Active channels were 75,000 at the peak, now 45,000. Average channel size, about the same, 0.073 BTC. Yeah, it's growing a little bit, yeah. And the network growth rate was growing at 15% in 2023 now.
Every number went down except for the average channel size.
Yep.
And so you see what's happening is the network is centralizing. It's still very decentralized, but there's sort of more of a hub and spokes model with some different hubs,
So while still smaller than wrapped Bitcoin protocols, Lightning's real value isn't just raw capacity. It's enabling new types of applications. This isn't just happening in payments, it's happening in infrastructure. So Lightning is becoming the HTTP of money. Just as HTTP enabled the web by standardizing information transfer, Lightning is enabling a new financial internet by standardizing value transfer. Developers are building streaming payments that charge by the second, machine-to-machine transactions for IoT devices, and integration with social networks like Nostr. I'm not a huge fan of Nostr, but technically it's interesting.
But there's nothing like this in stablecoin.
No.
Honestly, Lightning, now there's going to be stablecoins on Lightning, but this infrastructure does not exist, this kind of private payment system for any digital currency.
Right.
So, it's funny, but some people, I saw a really great argument on Twitter where people are arguing about whether Lightning was private or not.
Right. Which is really interesting, yeah.
Really interesting. And the winning question is, the guy told me he asked people, how many Lightning transactions were there yesterday? And the answer is, I don't know. And then he says, well, why not? Why don't you know?
Right.
You can't know. You
Yeah.
actually cannot know. So that's why it's private.
So major infrastructure developments are accelerating adoption. David Marcus of PayPal, and he ran the Libra project at Facebook, which never saw the light of day.
They're here in Los Angeles.
Oh, they are? I didn't know.
Yeah,
Lightspark are building Spark to enable stable coins that work seamlessly with Lightning Network. Meanwhile, Lightning Labs, our friends, is developing Taproot assets that enable issuing various digital assets directly on Bitcoin using Lightning for instant transfers. These aren't side chains or wrap tokens. They're native Bitcoin protocol extensions. Significantly, Tether, the world's largest stablecoin issuer, is exploring partnerships with both Lightning Labs and Spark. This suggests that even established stablecoin infrastructure is recognizing Lightning's potential as a settlement layer for digital dollar transactions. These use cases don't require everyone to run nodes or manage channels. They just require the infrastructure to exist. Just like how the internet works, even though most people don't run servers.
Yeah. So I mean, this is sort of more of a positive view on Lightning. We have both sides on this, and it is advancing. It's doing really interesting stuff, and there's a stable coin issuance happening in both Lightning Labs and in Spark, which is cool. Now let's switch over to Wrap Bitcoin. So Wrap Bitcoin. While Lightning tries to make Bitcoin fast on this private Lightning network, Wrap Bitcoin tries to make it portable against different blockchains. So the concept is simple. You lock up real Bitcoin in some sort of custody arrangement. Then you issue tokens on other chains that represent that Bitcoin. So then your Bitcoin can participate in DeFi or yield, power smart contracts, and one Wrap Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin, backed by an actual Bitcoin held in reserve. Now, Wrap Bitcoin peaked at 284,000 Bitcoin in 2022, and now has declined to about half, around 127,000 Bitcoin as of August 2025. So this represents primarily Bitcoin wrapped on Ethereum, with smaller amounts on other chains like Solana, BNB. But even at these reduced levels, that's still 30 times more Bitcoin than Lightning's total capacity. This decline reflects both market conditions and users becoming more cautious about custody risks after various DeFi exploits. But not your keys, not your coins is still Bitcoin's first commandment, and Wrap Bitcoin breaks it by design. When you wrap Bitcoin, you're trusting someone else to hold your Bitcoin while you play with a synthetic representation of it. So this resembles depositing gold at a bank and receiving a gold certificate. The certificate might be useful, even valuable, but it remains distinct from actual gold. Remember Ren BTC?
I do.
It was another.
I actually had some.
You had some, right? I did too. It was another decentralized Bitcoin protocol controlled by the Ren protocol team, which was actually secretly controlled by Alameda.
So what happened is Ren BTC sold. It got sold to FTX.
It was one of FTX's many acquisitions.
Yeah.
And when FTX collapsed in November 2022, Ren BTC holders discovered that their trustless wrapped Bitcoin was actually an IOU from Sam Bankman-Fried's trading firm. The protocol held over 200 million in Bitcoin at its peak, and much of that evaporated overnight. Although I think they actually found it eventually. You know,
I think I had $5,000 in that thing.
Yeah,
it
would be 25 or whatever.
Yeah.
So this pattern repeats endlessly in crypto. Sophisticated sounding technology papers over simple custody risk. Whether it's WBTC, Ren BTC, or the next revolutionary wrapping protocol, the fundamental truth remains: wrapped Bitcoin or custodial Lightning is not Bitcoin. So it's a promise from someone else to give you Bitcoin later. But since we're talking about wrapped Bitcoin, we should mention that I built a protocol called Libre. I'm part of a team that built a protocol called Libre. And Libre is a Bitcoin lending protocol that uses MPC TSS computation. So it's multi-party computation with threshold signature schemes. And this is different than a multi-sig. And the way it works is that there's never a private key that's constructed in one place. Instead, these parties are doing computations using partial key shards, right? Shamir sharding.
MPC, by the way, was invented by our
By
friend David Chong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So multi-party computation. Unlike wrapped Bitcoin protocols, Libre's lending collateral isn't actually wrapped. So each user's Bitcoin is held in an individual address with complete transparency that you can verify your exact Bitcoin balance on chain anytime. There's no shared seed phrase. There's no pooled custody. Users control part of the key, and Libre nodes control another part. But no single party ever has access to the complete private key. So this matters because traditional multi-sig reveals spending conditions on chain. Everyone can see that's a 305, who the signers are, and what the spending policy is. MPC TSS looks like a regular transaction on chain. So it provides better privacy and lower fees while maintaining individual address transparency. And if you use your vault only one time, if you just deposit into it and only withdraw one time, well, actually, you're also quantum proof. So the architecture represents a middle path between full self-custody and wrapped Bitcoin. Your Bitcoin never leaves the Bitcoin chain, remains in your individual address, and stays 100% backed. But even with these improvements, Libre still involves trust trade-offs. The key generation ceremony must be secure. The parties holding key shards must remain honest and available, and the protocol must be bug-free. So there's no such thing as a trustless Bitcoin lending, only different distributions of trust. As we saw this week,
Right.
the DLCs that Lava.xyz was supposedly using actually they're not even using them.
Right.
So I kept wondering when I tried it out, like, where is my Bitcoin? You want to be able to see your Bitcoin somewhere. But look, we're just mentioning this to illustrate this point that even those of us building these systems, we realize the limitations.
Right.
Wrapped Bitcoin is a tool, not a solution. Use it when necessary, but don't confuse it with actual Bitcoin.
Now, this Libre protocol, we've taken this piece out, and this has already been removed.
Yeah.
This is an older version
Yeah.
of the book we're looking at. Let's talk about the stablecoin bridge to 1 million. So the previous chapter explored how banks are building stablecoin networks to compete with Bitcoin. These financial institutions haven't considered that their new networks might end up. Actually, let me wonder, why is this in here? Let me just make sure. This may be.
No, this is not there. This should not be there.
This should not be here also. I think.
Yeah, there's a compelling question.
Okay,
We'll get it out.
Okay. The scaling question. Let's talk about the
You don't
scaling.
have to write in there.
Okay, yeah. There's a compelling argument.
You want me to read this one?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a compelling argument that Bitcoin doesn't need to scale at all. So if Bitcoin's primary role is digital gold, a store of value and a settlement layer for large transactions, then 7 transactions per second might be perfectly adequate. Physical gold has functioned beautifully as a monetary foundation for thousands of years, despite being incredibly difficult to transport, divide, or verify. Central banks hold gold bars in vaults for decades without moving them. The London gold market operates on 400-ounce gold bars that rarely ever leave the warehouse. And ownership changes through ledger entries, not physical delivery. So Bitcoin could serve exactly this role, pristine collateral that anchors the financial system without processing millions of coffee purchases. Sorry, Matteo.
Yeah.
But history teaches us what happens to money that cannot move efficiently. Gold's physical constraints first led to paper certificates, then fractional reserve banking, then pure fiat currency disconnected from the underlying metal. If Bitcoin cannot scale to serve regular users at reasonable cost, the same pattern will emerge. Custodians will issue Bitcoin IOUs, fractional reserves will develop, will create the exact system that Bitcoin was meant to replace.
There's a lot of fear
people,
about this.
Yeah, a lot of people are.
And somewhat justified. I mean, I think that the ETF world is safer from this than the Sam Bankman-Fried world. I hope.
You mean the paper Bitcoin issue?
Yeah.
No, I think it is. It definitely is way more, way less likely to have paper Bitcoin there. But the same issue is that we're creating a system that Bitcoin is meant to replace is 100% true.
All right, let me talk about the new generation. Beyond go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Scaling preserves self-custody. So Bitcoin's revolutionary innovation is self-custody. When users can transact directly and affordably, they don't need intermediaries. When transactions cost $50 and take hours, custody centralizes to institutions that can batch operations and subsidize fees.
All right. So beyond Lightning and Wrap Bitcoin, there's a whole new generation of scaling proposals that has emerged from the ashes of the block size war. Each of these represents a different philosophy about what Bitcoin should become. So why don't you go over this?
Yeah, I'll go
This
over
is
these.
highly technical.
So this is one of the chapters I actually wrote. But
yeah.
There's different scaling solutions. So each one of them has a TPS of transactions per second. It has a level of sort of security, and there's trade-offs. So the first one is the base layer, 7 transactions per second, as we said, maximum security, but the trade-offs are that it's high fees and it's slow. And we have the Lightning Network, 1,000 plus transactions per second, maybe infinite because it scales so high. Security is very high. The trade-offs are the channel management we talked about. And we have Wrapped Bitcoin. The TPS varies depending on what network it's on. There's custodial risk, and the trade-off is it's not your keys. Roll-ups. Well, we don't know exactly, but let's just say 1,000 to 10,000 transactions per second, very high security, complex, very complex. BitVM, unlimited TPS, Bitcoin secured security, and it's very experimental. So they don't exist yet. Side chains, well, we could have any different range from 100 to 10,000, let's say. Security is very variable, and the trade-off is that there's some other consensus. There's some other nodes running things that you'll have to end up trusting that they get the right balance of security on there. So these roll-ups are battle tested on Ethereum. They're coming to Bitcoin. They bundle thousands of transactions to a single on-chain settlement while maintaining security through cryptographic proofs. So if successful, they could process thousands of transactions per second while inheriting Bitcoin's security. BitVM is something else, bringing full computational capabilities to Bitcoin without changing the protocol. So instead of executing computation on-chain, you prove computation off-chain using fraud proofs. This theoretically enables everything Ethereum offers: DeFi, smart contracts, complex financial infrastructure.
Theoretically,
it's not yet working.
And it's been a while.
It's been a while.
I mean, it's been 2 years.
It actually might require some changes to Bitcoin. So
yeah,
there's some papers you can read more about these things. We're just giving you a short introduction.
Yeah.
And if you have thoughts about it, or anything's not correct, please ping us on Twitter. Let us know.
Or our friend Isabel Fox and Duke.
Yeah, or ping Isabel. She'll tell us.
Okay.
So there's all these sidechain proposals. There's different trade-offs between security and functionality. Some are focused on privacy, some on programmability, some on just purely spending. Speed, but most of them are going to fail, but the experimentation is healthy. The goal isn't competing with Visa, it's maintaining self-custody for middle-class individuals. Different solutions will serve different needs. Lightning for instant, roll-ups for DeFi, sidechains for experimentation, but the base layer is still the ultimate settlement. User lessons. If you're considering these scaling solutions, my experience suggests the following. For Lightning, start with custodial wallets, learn the system. Don't run a node unless you enjoy suffering. Keep amounts small, spending money, not savings. Expect occasional failed payments. For Wrap Bitcoin, never wrap any more than you're willing to lose. Understand who holds the keys. Consider tax implications. Monitor bridge security constantly. Hacks happen fast. For everything else, remember that complexity is the enemy of security. The base layer is always safer. These are tools for specific purposes, not investments.
The inevitable choice. Ultimately, scaling is not an if, but a how. Bitcoin will scale. The only question is whether it scales through trust minimized solutions or through traditional banking infrastructure dressed up as innovation. The choice is stark. On one hand, we have cryptographically sound layer 2 protocols that preserve Bitcoin's sovereignty principles. These solutions may introduce their own tokens or governance complexities, but they maintain the fundamental ethos of cryptographic ownership and decentralized control. I just want to pause there about this.
This is so important to understand. Yeah.
A lot of people are like, well, I want to make Bitcoin really fast. Okay, great. Well, there's one solution, which is Lightning, doesn't require any other tokens or anything like that. But most of these solutions, they're going to run on some other blockchain. They're going to run on Ethereum. They're going to run on Solana. They're going to run on Ethereum with a layer 2 on top of Ethereum, like Arbitrum. Okay. So, that's one possibility. But if you're like, I hate tokens and stuff, well, That may be the way the world's headed. We don't know. Another way the world might be headed is with custodial apps like Cash App, right?
It's absolutely insane to me that like most Bitcoiners think that Strike and Cash App are the solution when these are just banks with a different skin. They're a wolf in sheep's clothing, guys. Like, I'm sorry, but they're not doing anything decentralized. They might be helping Bitcoin adoption, but they're just banks with Bitcoin in them.
Right.
Like we shouldn't be so excited about them. I don't know. That's kind of my
well, in a sense, we're excited if Bank of America accept Bitcoin. We'd be excited about that. But it's the same kind of like, well, these guys were the guys who were anti-Bitcoin. Now they're opening themselves up to Bitcoin, and you're excited. So I understand. It's a nuanced thing.
They're on our team now.
They're kind of on our team. Okay. So on the other side, we have JP Morgan's blockchain, Wells Fargo digital asset program, and Bank of America's custody solutions, and my favorite, Fidelity solution, Fidelity digital assets.
This chapter brought to you by Fidelity.
Yeah, even solutions, which I like the Fidelity guys a lot. They're really good. Even solutions that appear more Bitcoin friendly, like Strike and Cash App, are ultimately just banks with better UX. They're the same institutions that just 1 year ago were debanking Bitcoiners and aggressively seeking to end any form of cryptographic ownership, including Bitcoin itself. Now they're positioning themselves as the safe scaling solution. The irony is palpable. Banks that spent decades fighting financial sovereignty are now offering to provide it through their controlled infrastructure, under their terms, and with their compliance requirements. They're betting that users will choose convenience over principles, familiar brands over cryptographic guarantees. This just isn't just a technical decision, it's an ideological one. Do we want to scale Bitcoin through systems that could be shut down by regulatory pressure, or through systems that systematically cannot be captured? Do we trust institutions that have repeatedly demonstrated hostility to financial sovereignty, or do we build tools that make trust unnecessary? The market will decide, but the stakes couldn't be higher. If Bitcoin scales primarily through financial rails, we risk recreating the system that Bitcoin was designed to replace, just with better technology.
Yeah. It's sad, man.
Yeah.
Bitcoin as the base layer, the 10-year vision. Well, 20 years, really.
Yeah.
By 2045, we believe Bitcoin will emerge as the base settlement layer of global commerce. Not despite its 10 minutes blocks, but because of them. The 10-minute confirmation time will not change. This isn't a limitation, it's a feature of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's deliberate pace ensures security, decentralization, and resistance to capture that faster networks can't match. But everything built around Bitcoin will be instant, programmable, and trust minimized. You know, I saw a really great tweet today that was like, it was like a Venn diagram with two circles.
Yeah.
And it was like people that understand difficulty adjustment and people that think Bitcoin are worthless. And they overlap, and they said, I've never met this person that did that overlap. You can explain difficulty adjustment.
Right.
There's no way you think Bitcoin's worthless. And that 10-minute block time is part of it.
That's pretty much, I agree.
So think of Bitcoin as the foundation of a new financial system. Banks use Bitcoin's final settlement for large transfers between institutions. Stablecoin networks clear instant payments backed by Bitcoin reserves. Lightning Network handles peer-to-peer transactions. Roll-ups processing complex financial contracts. All layers settle back to the base layer, where the monetary energy accumulates. This architecture looks impossible today. Lightning has liquidity problems. Wrapped Bitcoin has custody risks. Stablecoin networks operate in isolation, but the incentives are aligning. Banks building stablecoin networks need monetary sovereignty. Users want instant payments without counterparty risks. Institutions require transparent settlement. So the path to $10 million Bitcoin runs through this infrastructure build out. Not because Bitcoin needs to process 1 billion transactions per second, but because 1 billion people need access to Bitcoin's monetary properties through trust minimized rails. The timeline's aggressive but achievable. Consider how quickly the internet scaled from academic experiment to global infrastructure. Bitcoin's scaling solutions are following a similar trajectory. Experimental today, essential tomorrow. Will every solution succeed? No. Will the overall vision materialize? The economic incentives suggest yes. When money that can't be debased meets infrastructure that can't be captured, the result is a financial system worth trillions, regardless of whether the base layer blocks take 10 minutes or 10 seconds. The scaling wars are over. The building phase has begun.
So, this chapter is not it's not the chapter where you're just going, okay, that chapter convinced me to buy Bitcoin. But there are a lot of fudders out there who say that Bitcoin is not ready and will not be ready. And I think by addressing all these technical things, and we cut out a lot. We had a lot of stuff that was about ARC and everything. And I basically convinced Ben, I said, listen, this stuff's too technical. This is too technical.
We went very high level on it, but I think it accomplishes also sort of explaining this important message that we need to have a trust minimized solution for scaling.
Yeah.
Using banks to scale and using,
I don't want to quote Alex Mashinsky, but banks are not your friend. That's what he kept on saying. Banks are not your friend. And
he was right about that.
He was right about that.
Of course, he was running a bank, telling that. So that's why we don't really want people running banks.
So look, the bottom line is we don't know how Bitcoin is going to scale exactly, but it will scale, right? We're definitely there are many ways that Bitcoin is, and it's exciting that Cash App is scaling merchant. We should actually add this to the book at some point for the next edition. We should talk about
the Cash App.
The Cash App.
The cool thing about the Cash App payments is you can choose how much of it to keep in Bitcoin when you get a Bitcoin payment. You can convert some to stablecoin, but they should be doing it the other way. You should be processing stablecoin transactions, then choosing how much to put in Bitcoin. Right. People don't want to spend their Bitcoin. I was tweeting today. Did you see my tweet to Udi?
Yeah.
It's like there's two types of people who are building Bitcoin payment rails. People who don't realize that no one wants to spend their Bitcoin, and people who think that they're on a crusade to make Bitcoin the means of exchange, the prophecy of means of exchange. They're trying to achieve it. And there's number 3, both of the above.
Yeah. So, Justin's like, not everyone's going to ride Lightning. No question. We need enough people running it for other self-sovereign. Yeah, we do need some people to run it. We agree.
Yeah. We still run Lightning nodes, but they're just not doing very much these days.
No. And I don't know. So anyways, we had to cover that. It was kind of a necessary thing, especially I am very hopeful that at some point we will be spending a lot of Bitcoin. And, I want to conclude by saying, Joe Carlosali was telling me yesterday that, that on Fidelity right now, you can deposit Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You can deposit Bitcoin into your brokerage account, right? And you can go from your brokerage account and export Bitcoin. So the merger between the financial system and Bitcoin is happening. It's happening.
Right? Yeah, it's interesting that, Troy Cross was saying something this week about it, and he was kind of saying that why are these OG guys selling it? It's because the story of Bitcoin has changed.
Yeah.
It was this sexy counter financial system, counter culture sort of rebellion.
Right.
And that's become more of a financial instrument. They're bored of that narrative.
Well, Jordy Visser sort of said the same thing, because what Jordy said is,
you're right. Yeah.
He goes, Peter Thiel was complaining. He goes, it really has it's changed. It's not really living up to the cypherpunk ethos. And Jordy goes, yeah, and that's a good thing, because
it hasn't changed is the thing. It's only changed for people that use the ETF.
Right.
So only the ETF users are experiencing Bitcoin in a different way.
Right.
The rest of us, I don't own any ETF at all.
No.
The rest of us are still using rebellion money.
Yeah.
So we have both worlds now.
And they both can coexist.
Yeah, they both coexist. And honestly, everyone who gets into Bitcoin through the ETF and thinks about it, learns about it, they become interested in the rebel money. They become interested in self-custody.
But look, there's a lot. One thing we'd like to just impress on you is there's a lot to learn about Bitcoin. It's not like, hey, Bill, what you learn Bitcoin? No. Well, let's move on to the next currency. I got, Zcash is going nuts, man. Bitcoin is a lot, right? There's a lot of depth to Bitcoin. You can read a book, you can write a book, you can write 2 books on Bitcoin. I've read 20 books on Bitcoin. There's a lot of stuff on Bitcoin. It is a deep rabbit hole that you will go down. But I think the more you do study it, the more you're getting convinced of the title that we're going to $1 million, right? That's the destination, guys. We're headed to $1 million.
How do you study Bitcoin? What do you think? Someone's like, what do you tell someone who says, I don't know anything. I don't understand Bitcoin. Like, I just still, after all these years, you talked about it to me so much, but I still don't understand it.
I had a guy like that in our space today.
It's pretty amazing. I get these guys too. And
This guy came in, he was like,
but
he was talking about how it wasn't sufficiently decentralized and that Chia coin was much better.
oh yeah,
And we were like, somebody pulled up a graph of Chia coin.
yeah.
Chia coin literally was at 5,000 and went to $1.
Yeah.
It went down from 5,000 to $1. He goes, no wonder he's so
There was
upset.
the guy who created BitTorrent. I think he sold it to Justin Sun or something, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. But there's always something. There's something new under the sun. But look, Bitcoin is winning, and
But where do you send someone who's like that? Like, I still don't understand Bitcoin.
I tell you where you don't send them: the white paper.
Definitely not.
Because the white paper is just too complex for an average. And by the way, most Bitcoiners do not understand the white paper.
Jameson Lop's website? Would you send them there?
No,
It has amazing information, honestly, but it's just not for a beginner.
no. Honestly, I would send them. I don't know. That's a good question. Like,
It's a really good question, right?
if you look at Sailor stuff, it's not. It's very good on the economics of Bitcoin or why good thing about
Yeah,
all
like
these
this book
metaphors.
as well is not really. I mean, this book is actually a good primer looking at it from an investment perspective.
Mm.
You know?
I think that little book of Bitcoin is pretty good.
the little Bitcoin book is probably the best still.
Yeah.
The little Bitcoin book is so good.
Who
You
wrote
get it
that
for
again?
free in many languages. It was written by a group of people.
Okay. Yeah. That one's great.
Elena Satoshi is one of them.
Yeah.
And also the guy from the Human Rights Foundation, whatever his name is, I can't think of it now. Alex
Last name?
Gladstein's one of them.
Yeah.
And there's like 7 authors, and they wrote it in like a weekend.
Yeah.
It's pretty good though. That is honestly the best, probably the best primer. I do have a 1-pager. Remember that 1-pager sheet? It's pretty good.
tricky though because Bitcoin is not. It actually is a complicated thing, right? Like how it works, the mechanics of how it works, the mechanics of why it works are not tricky, and that's one of the things is.
We should revisit that little 1-pager and see.
I
If
mean,
we
we
can
probably should rewrite like a 5-page book on how Bitcoin. I'll tell you who did a pretty good version. Tomer.
Oh, he's
Tomer
great.
Strolight has a very good. He had a great space on Bitcoin Today, and I think he has a book about how Bitcoin works, which is fantastic. It really, it's.
Why Bitcoin?
I think that might be it. Yeah. I think maybe. But he had something about how Bitcoin works, and he really has a very.
Oh, how Bitcoin really works. 5-minute read.
Yeah, that's it. That's what we should do. Bitcoin nodes, Bitcoin transactions, Bitcoin addresses, blocks, mining. Yeah, that's the best 5-minute read on Bitcoin.
I love this idea. You know what we should do is more of these like.
We should get Tomer.
We should do.
on,
We should get Tomer, but we should. He's so poetic. He's a great writer. He's a brilliant thinker. But we should do like more of these 5-minute. I love these 5 minutes. How Bitcoin works in 5 minutes is really good. I love this kind of short attention span focused thing. Maybe even 1 minute.
Yeah.
Then we make a video that's like how Bitcoin works in 1 minute.
But there's a lot of bad information. It's just judging from this guy today. He's like, it's totally decentralized, totally centralized. No. So there's a lot of bad information, unfortunately, on the internet about what Bitcoin is. It's not an easy topic, really, to understand. I mean, at the end of the day, you can sort of understand there's 21 million coins. They're fractional, and you can send them. Okay. And maybe that's all you need to understand. Maybe that's the level of understanding, If you ask me how how
an ETF works.
If you ask me how an ETF works, I don't have a complete understanding of every nuance on the authorized participants and everything, there. I don't need to understand that. I understand generally how it works, but I don't understand everything. I don't understand how a clock radio works completely. You know what I mean? Like there's very simple things have the complex stories behind every one of them. But anyways, that's the thing. We got more than halfway through the book. I'm not sure we'll do one tomorrow, but the next one is a good one.
Next one's the Apex Predator.
The Apex Predator.
God,
So
what a good chapter.
we
It was originally called there is no second best.
there was a second best, and then we decided because we had this shark, we wanted to introduce the shark as the Apex Predator. Of
Yeah,
Bitcoin.
we call the book the final chapter of fiat, but we should call it the Apex Predator Money. It's on the back.
Yeah, the Apex Predator.
Apex Predator Money, but they're both really great subtitles for the book. And
Yeah.
overall, the book is just an amazing explanation of why Bitcoin's path to 1 million is inevitable. That's it.
All right, guys, enjoy the book, and